Welcome to the channel, everybody. I am glad you found me. My name is Marshall, and ever since mirrorless cameras came onto the scene, one of the greatest things about them is that you can use vintage lenses with them. So today I'm going to talk about my 3 favorite vintage lenses to use on the Fuji GFX medium format camera system, so stick with me. Okay, let's start off by talking about those lenses. Medium format lenses are a little bit more scarce than the 35mm lenses that you kind of see everywhere. There's one big reason for this. They just made way more of the 35mm lenses. The medium format lenses were really designed for medium format cameras that were designed for professional photographers. There weren't nearly as many of them sold, and therefore there's just not as many of them on the market. Now, spoiler alert, I'm just going to jump in and tell you what my 3 favorite lenses are, but you're going to have to stick around to see why they're my favorite. My 3 favorite vintage lenses are the Carl Zeiss Jenna 80mm 2.8, the Carl Zeiss Jenna 120mm f2.8, and you guessed it, the Carl Zeiss Jenna 180mm f2.8. These lenses were made by Carl Zeiss Jenna for the Pentacon 6 medium format camera. It was a square format camera, and these 3 lenses create a great trio to cover so many different photographic situations, needs, and they all produce amazing images. Alright, let's talk about the history of these lenses. It's really hard to talk about these lenses without talking about their history. At the end of World War II, the Carl Zeiss Jenna factory was in East Germany. Therefore, for decades, they continued to make optics for the Pentacon 6 film camera. This was a medium format camera that was very popular in the USSR and had a square format. The Carl Zeiss Jenna lenses are made of super high quality materials. They have great optics. The glass is amazing. And even more importantly, they produce amazing, beautiful images. If you'd like to learn more about the history, which I think is super fascinating, you can find out more on my blog. The 80mm f2.8 Carl Zeiss Jenna lens is a great normal lens. It's light and compact for a medium format lens, and it takes amazing images. If you don't mind manually focusing, it's a great lens to put on the Fuji GFX and just carry it around with you all day long. See the image here of the buildings and how the wall holds its lines. Even better is the Carl Zeiss contrast. And in this next image, the beautiful colors that you get with this lens is just amazing. And because this lens was kind of a kit lens back in the day for the Pentacon 6 camera format, there are more of them available on the market than a lot of the other Carl Zeiss Jenna medium format lenses. This is great because it also helps bring down the price of this vintage lens as well. The 120mm f2.8 is a fantastic lens. Like all the other Carl Zeiss Jenna lenses here, it produces amazing images. I actually use it sometimes instead of the Fuji 120mm f4. There's times where I just really want that shallow depth of field that you can't quite get with f4, and that's where the Carl Zeiss 120 2.8 really does a great job. See this portrait here, notice the nice soft background and the nice colors and the sharp face. This is exactly where this particular Carl Zeiss lens shines. The Carl Zeiss 120 f2.8 is a great alternative to the Fuji 120mm f4. The Carl Zeiss is manual focus, so you lose a little bit with the autofocus, but you get a lot more light, and it gives you a lot more flexibility with shallower depth of field. I also like the fact that the Carl Zeiss just produces colors that isn't quite the same as the Fuji. This to me gives it a unique feel and really helps me take images that I feel comfortable are different. The 180mm f2.8 is super fast for a telephoto medium format lens. This lens is bigger and heavier than the other two lenses here by a long shot, but it fits very well on the Fuji GFX 50S and feels very balanced when you're shooting with it. This lens is really all about the amazing portraits that you can take with it. See in this black and white portrait all the sharp detail and then that classic soft skin. This lens also works for a telephoto shot. See the bird here. I do caution though, it's a manual focus, and that means you have to move quick for anything that's moving. This lens is really coveted for its portraiture, and for that reason, it is a little more difficult to find good copies at a reasonable price on the vintage market. So if you do want this kind of lens, expect to spend a little more money to get it. This trio of Carl Zeiss Jenna lenses covers a large focal range and produces amazing images. With these three lenses, I feel like I can almost cover all of my photographic lens needs. Given that these lenses are all vintage, you can get all three of these plus an adapter for about the price that it will cost you for a single Fuji modern lens. That's important to know because if you're on a budget, this is a great way to get lenses that will cover a lot of photographic needs, or if you're just looking for something different from the modern autofocus lenses, these offer a great alternative. Using these manual focus lenses requires me to slow down. It requires me to really think about the shots that I'm going to take. For that reason, I think these lenses actually push my creativity rather than hinder it. It forces me to see the image before I even take it. I would highly recommend vintage lenses and these three Carl Zeiss Jenna lenses. Alright, so I hope that you learned something new with this information, and I hope this inspired you to go out and use your camera and go shoot, because that's what we're here for. If you like this information, don't forget to hit the thumbs up below, and if you want to see more content like this, hit the subscribe button. Have you used these three lenses? What are your thoughts on them? Have you used other lenses that you prefer on the Fuji GFX system? Leave me a comment. If you have any questions or feedback, leave me a comment down below. I look forward to hearing from you. And until next time, enjoy your photography journey.